You hear me okay now?
We can hear you, but you're gonna have to speak up.
Okay, I will speak loud. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay, well, welcome everybody on an unseasonably warm day. Let's see, for the roll call, we have nothing to add to the agenda, right, Ty?
Nope, nothing to add.
Okay. Or do I have to click OK on this thing, the way this is? Okay, got it. For the record, we'll show that regular members, myself, Lynn Warner, Ken Johnson, Paul Yagid, Marge Smith are here, along with our land use administrator, Ty Kern, and our clerk, Donna Hayes. And welcome everybody else who's here. We've got a full night, so we're just going to get right into it. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes of the April 11th meeting? And comments, corrections, questions? Okay,
Nicely done.
very nicely done.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thanks. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Ken. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstention? Nope. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna get right into old business. I see, it looks like Andrea's here. I didn't see any new materials in the packet. Did they come in after the fact?
So they just came in today. We received a plan. Richard Rosiello is representing Andrea.
Okay.
He's here.
See him?
And
Hi, Richard.
he came in with a plan, and as well as he came in and updated the application to reflect the correct areas of regulated and wetlands areas to be disturbed. I think he'll take you through the plan. We also had a question because this is an after the fact permit and restoration. There was also an extended area that they wanted to take out invasives and do some planting. So that's in addition. And I just left it up to him to talk to you guys about that and whether you want to allow them to add that to this application or require a new one for something additional. You guys can talk about that.
So can we share a screen of the plan? Since Ken and I haven't had the opportunity to see it.
Richard, did you want to do that or do you want me to?
Do I have the ability to do that?
Yes,
I don't. I've
you
never
can.
done it before.
Oh, okay. I can do it for you if you'd like.
Okay. Did you get the email I sent with the plan yesterday as well? I know that would still be after the fact, but I did send it in email to you yesterday.
Yeah, but I just got it when I got into the office today on Monday.
Okay. Well, that was Friday. That doesn't matter.
So Ty, why don't you go ahead and pull it up?
I am.
Okay.
This is just
Do you want me to see if I can pull it up, Ty?
I just found it. I just have to
Okay.
share it now. Just took me a second to find it.
Okay, can you make it a little bit bigger? And Richard, why don't you, once Ty gets it a little bigger,
Yeah,
why
it's got to
don't
be a
you?
little larger. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, Richard Rosiello representing Ms. Budd in the application, the after the fact application. I visited the site numerous times. I received information from Ty regarding what has been transpiring. I've noted on the plan what's existing and what we propose to do. The stream bank, Miss Budd originally was there was a tree in the upper portion of the property that was struck by lightning, and that tree was cut down, but then they did some other work without a permit, putting some rocks in the stream along the Kent Hollow Road when they had a cease and desist order. You all came out, walked the property. The work was done in January, February, March. The site walk was the beginning of March when the commission came out. You saw that the stream banks were armored with boulders because there were those erosive events. We had those huge rain events in January, February, March. We had 3-inch rain events, 5-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch. And the stream bank, the western stream bank of this stream was starting to erode. So they thought they were doing something that was the right thing to do. They armored the stream banks where the water was coming out and eroding the stream. And that would be the middle portion of the property. Another thing that was noted on your site walk was that there were a path that was added on the western side of the stream bank. That path is about a 2-foot wide path. It's wood chip, it's some gravel and wood chip. There's hydrophytic vegetation coming up through it. It's all permeable. The purpose of that was done earlier. The purpose was was just to get Miss Budd into the whole interior of the property. It's all false hellebore, skunk cabbage. There's ryegrass in there. It's all really vegetated. There's no impact to the wetlands specifically for that. And that was really basically done almost as a meditative walk to get across and walk through the property. There are some native species of salix. There's Cornus dogwoods, shrub dogwood, silky dogwood that are in the lower canopy around the stream areas and the path area. On the house side of the stream, there's a lot wood chips were laid to create sitting areas. They are permeable, they're stable. There's a lot of vegetation coming up through those areas as well, excuse me. I think the most important thing and there are some crossings that are noted. They put split log bridges in certain areas to get across the stream in certain areas, one at the entry just off of Kent Hollow Road. And then there are 3 along the western portion of the interior of the property that cross over to the western portion of the property.
Can you show us where those are? I'm sorry, I'm just losing it. There's one, yeah.
There's one lower one
There's
there.
the other one, okay. And
There,
there's
and
one.
then there's one to the right,
Thank you.
up above. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ty has the cursor. I can't.
Yeah, right.
Okay. It's interesting to note, I also sent Ty, it's probably not in the packet yet, but there was a survey done of the northern property because Miss Budd owns the 2 properties and she's got that on the total acreage of the property is 14.49. In 1981, Robert Haack did a survey, and the stream did not cross the property where it's crossing now. Kit, who lives on that other property, said there was some storm event years ago, either in the 80s or the 90s, that caused the stream to move. It either moved naturally or someone had recut that stream. And that also, of course, now north is on your bottom here. So Miss Budd's house is to the north, excuse me, the top of this page. It's not shown. That's the neighboring house that's shown. But the stream did go north. And if you pull up your wetland GIS that's on the Kent site, it also shows that the stream historically went to the north. So at some point it changed. And streams do change, but apparently with some storm event.
Okay.
So I walked the property. Everything's pretty stable. As I said, there's a lot of good vegetation. There is some Ty on that upper left hand where it's a split log bridge. There is some garlic mustard and honeysuckle across in that area right there. There's a lot of invasive honeysuckle. And then to the north, there's some garlic mustard. Aside from that, and garlic mustard also on the house side and the upper property side, there's a lot of barberry. Other than that, there's a lot of native vegetation there. I thought the most important thing that was critical here was to stabilize the stream bank. We know that this stream feeds into the West Aspetuck, which is a critical habitat. The water is moving at a quick rate. It's flowing over rocks that look like they've been historically. They have not put those rocks in the stream itself. They only did the rocks along the bank and to support some of the split log bridges. But I think the most important thing would be to stabilize the stream banks, and I'm proposing that we stabilize them with live stake vegetative material. Now, I'm sorry, Ty referenced also that on the application, section 6, the total acreage is 1449. Ms. Budd had put down that the acreage of wetlands and watercourses that were disturbed was 12 acres. That's grossly overrated. I did the calculation. The area that's been disturbed is 0.173 acres in wetlands and watercourses, and the regulated area is 0.07 was disturbed. The most critical aspect is the stream itself. The stream banks represent 0.024 acres of the entire property. And I think that would be critical habitat to, as I said, to revegetate those banks. There are some banks that are still exposed. They seem stable. They're mostly on the western side of the property. There is one area to the on the western edge of the stream where the large rip boulders have been placed, that there is a sandy bar that's exposed, and I'd like to cover that as well. And then
what,
sea areas, yes.
just a quick question, what are you proposing to you used a word and I missed it,
Okay.
restabilize the stream bank.
In the stream bank, I want to use live stake or tubulings.
Oh, got
It's
it,
a wetland mitigation. You know those things, you
Yes, I
poke them
do.
right in, they take off.
Yeah,
And there's a few different species that I have listed. I have listed Alnus cerulata, Salix sericea, and Rus aromatica. And those species are native to Connecticut. All species have to be native to Connecticut, as we know. And they're very good at covering. I've also proposed that we add some Acer rubrum trees, and I have Betula nigra in the blue trees. The Acer rubrums are the larger green trees. I do believe we should add some shrubs as well. And those shrubs are represented in green dots, and those shrubs should be Clethra alnifolia, Cornus amomum, Ilex tissulata, and Spirea latifolia in the places that are appropriate to do that within the mulched areas. The
so all
mulched
those green
areas
dots?
yes,
Okay.
all those green dots, yes.
And
all
is the
those green
yellow,
dots.
where is the mulched area? And I'm sorry, I just
The
can't really.
yellow is the mulched area.
Got
The
it.
yellow is the mulch area. That encompasses the mulched area, and it's difficult on a 30 scale to show, but there's a lot of skunk cabbage that's coming up through all of that too. And Andrew is leaving that. They're not touching anything.
Good.
They haven't pulled any invasive plants. She knows not to do anything until there is a permit in place. But we feel that it's really critical to where we can protect the stream in all the areas. We want to do that. On the abutting property to the north, just along the stream, all along that stream corridor, it's full of invasive plants, mostly barberry, and there's some multiflora rose and a lot of garlic mustard. So we'd like to add the removal of those species to this permit, because it doesn't make sense to keep those species there, to let their seeds come back into the stream, go downstream, and potentially get into the West Aspetuck.
How much of an area would be removed, and do you have any replanting plans for that area?
I would have to add plants to this plan for that, but I would do the same material. It's a very shady, dry site, so there's a lot of things we can do. There are some ferns that are revegetating in that areas, but I would add more fern, and I would add more of either the Clethra or the Ilex tissulata, something that would tolerate those conditions. Yeah.
And how big an area
Yeah.
is that?
It's probably about 100 lineal feet by 8 or 10 lineal feet, so 800 square feet, let's say. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. I know it's difficult. You didn't see the plan in person. Also, that historic entry that's off of Kent Hollow Road, that I want you to oversee with a New England wetland seed mix, a restoration seed mix.
And that would be, can you show us where that is, Ty? Right there.
Right,
Okay.
right there. Yeah, right there. That area is pretty stable now. That's where they did drive in, but it is stable. There is some evidence you could see that someone drove in there and there was equipment used, but it is pretty stable. But I think we need to further enhance that. The rest of the property has been mowed as a hayfield, and they're going to continue to mow that as hayfield. That's going to keep invasives at bay. But it's looking good. Everything, as I said, is pretty stable.
Okay. Does, Todd, do you have anything you want to add to this? And then we should hear from the rest of the commission.
Mhm.
No, nothing to add other than, if there are any future plans, we should just be clear as to if they're gonna do anything further in addition to the restoration, whether it's approved as part of this or not. And we spoke about, erosion control. And Mr. Rosiello didn't feel like there would be very much disturbance with, doing the planting, that would be required.
Okay. So. Any other questions or comments from the rest of the commission? Marge?
No,
saying no?
looks good.
Yeah, right up alongside the road there, next to the stream.
Yes, sir.
I drove past there today. I noticed it was all raked out and seeded and hayed over. What was done there?
I think Miss Bud they just seeded the roadside because it was eroding. They're getting a lot of wash from the neighbor's driveway anytime it rains, and also water coming down Camp's Flat Road. So they just seeded along the road. They didn't seed anything in the wetlands, as far as I know.
Okay.
And they did put up erosion control as well to make sure that nothing did get into the stream.
No, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, Ken? Ken, do you have any questions? If you do, you got to speak up.
Rainstorm that we had several days ago.
Wow.
Was there any significant erosion from that rainstorm?
You know what? I can't hear you at all. I don't know if anybody else
I
can.
can't either.
No,
No.
Well, I just heard him saying with the recent rainstorms that we had, was there any more erosion as a result of those?
I didn't have evidence. There's no evidence of erosion, but as I said, there are some areas along the stream bank, especially on the western side of the property on both sides, where there is still some just soil exposed, and that's why I really want to revegetate those banks. The streams were running clear. I've been to the property 4 times. I was there after one rain event. There was no silt or anything running in the water. The water was running clear. But if we get back into a season where we're getting 3, 4, 5 inch rainstorms, of course something's going to erode. So if we have some material holding those banks, and those plant materials will do that, they will seed into those banks. I've done this in New Fairfield and also in Sherman, and it's very successful. It'll really hold those banks.
So if we were to approve the additional work, removing the invasives and replanting,
Yep.
how quickly would it take for you to complete this work? Or for this work to be completed, I should say.
For the work to be the work itself of removing the invasives and
The
planting.
whole plan.
The whole
Including
plan.
that.
I mean, including that. I mean, I would recommend that some of the planting be done as soon as possible, and other plantings be done when it's a little drier, especially with some of the invasive removal in the north over there.
Mhm.
I would think all in all, it's probably a 3-week process.
And is there a time frame or staging of the work? Do this first, do this second, do this third?
I did not do that yet. I could add that as a condition of approval, or I could add that ahead of time, or whatever you would like me to do. I think the most important thing to do is to identify invasive plants and see what can be removed and then mitigated, and do the stream bank installations as well. I think
Yeah.
that's really critical.
The initial, and we always try to get replanting as quickly as possible when invasives are removed.
Sure.
Well, I don't see a problem with adding the invasive removal and replanting to this application,
Mhm.
but maybe other commissioners have a concern or a question about that?
May I also say something about that, Ms. Warner?
Yes, please.
I would think that you might want to do the invasive removal in stages as well. If it's 100 linear foot of stream bank, we might not want to do 100 linear feet all at one shot. We might want to do it over 1 or 2 seasons,
Good point.
and let things revegetate. I
Mhm.
think that's a better management
Mhm.
practice, as opposed to coming in and taking everything out.
Sure. Again,
I
you would
also have
indicate, You would indicate that in a staging, in a plan of, I don't know what we call that, I'm sorry. You know, first you do this,
The
then you do the
sequence of
sequence.
construction. Yeah,
Thank you.
and I
Yes.
also have a also put in there's a 5-year monitoring of invasive material.
Okay. So with regard to adding that, to this application, do you see any problems with that, procedurally, Ty?
No,
Okay.
no, as long as you're okay with it, we just have to make it clear on the record what's been approved.
Okay. And Ken, Paul, and Marge, do you have a concern about doing that, or are you favor?
No, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay.
Okay. So can we vote to add that into this application, Ty, or do we just take it into the application?
Yeah, so I mean, I think he's saying on the record that he'd like to amend the application to include that information it's been noted on the plan as well. So
Yeah.
if we're approving the plan as a whole, I think that's sufficient. You don't have to vote to change anything.
Okay, and we can require a sequence of events as part of the approval, correct?
As a condition of approval. Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments? And if not, we could take a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to finally approve application 1339-24. A lot of hard work and thank you.
Would you amend that to also
Oh,
include?
yes, to include these, let's see, it was the staging of the removal of the invasives.
Just a whole sequence of all the events.
See, okay, the sequence of the process. Okay. That makes it easier.
Thank you. Okay, we need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Paul. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Richard, I want to thank you for being here and explaining this and putting this plan together. And Andrea, thank you for working with the commission so carefully to kind of respond to the concerns that we had initially and to mitigate them now. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And Ty, I'll come
Okay,
into
have
the
a good
office and talk to you before I redo everything, so we get it all in one shot.
Got
perfect.
it.
Thank you,
And happy
Richard.
birthday to Andrea. Take care.
Happy
Have a
birthday.
good night.
Bye,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
And thank you for the
your
permit.
time.
Bye.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Okay, very good. So we will move on to application 1343-24. Oops, I'm sorry, application 1342-24. And this is replacement of, looks like a septic tank. And is this an emergency application?
Yes,
What does that mean? Does that mean that we could actually take action tonight?
I believe so. So I mean, if it's health, if there's a health issue, then that's something you don't want to hold up. Getting
Are we still
addressed.
subject to the 15-day publication rule or no?
Yeah, I mean, they can start work, but at their own risk. I mean, if somebody was to come and, they would have to stop work if somebody was to complain about what they are doing. But I would imagine everybody wants everybody's septic tanks to be working properly. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Can you
why there
just-
would complain, but
Can you just give us a quick summary of the application? Then we'll ask, is that Paul?
yeah,
Yeah.
hey, good evening.
Hi.
that's
To
fine.
describe what he's planning to do.
Yeah, it's a replacement for a failing septic. Absolutely everything on the checklist has been covered by this plan. Nothing is lacking. I have nothing to say.
No
Everything
questions?
everything is in place, absolutely everything.
Okay. Paul, you want to just describe what you're doing where and then we'll see if anybody on the commission has questions.
Yeah, of course. Good evening for the record. Paul Smansky representing the applicant. Subject property is about 9 acres in size. We have about 0.17 acres of regulated area disturbance. As Ty pointed out, there's an existing leaching field which is currently failing every time the house is utilized. The only wetlands or regulated areas are actually just off the subject property to the south. There's an intermittent water course. The proposed activities are within the upland review area, except for the topsoil stockpile, which we located on the other side of the driveway. The positive aspect of this is that the contours run perpendicular to the intermittent water course. So the drainage pattern of this is parallel with the intermittent water course. It doesn't run towards it. We do have a construction sequence. We have erosion control on the down gradient side of the earth disturbance activities, and we would like to proceed in a timely manner because the system has been failed for some time now.
Mhm. Okay, questions, Ken, Paul, Marge? Seems pretty,
That's an original reserve area.
I believe it was, and then we retested the soils just to confirm that they were consistent with respect to the health code for approval purposes.
I know it's, we're all kind of looking at this for the first time and being asked to approve it tonight. With that 15-day waiver that, you know, Paul's aware of. If somebody were to appeal this in that 15 days, do we feel we have enough information to do that? Or does anybody feel like they would like more information?
I'm just trying to look at it. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was an excellent plan.
Okay,
There was
yep.
absolutely nothing
Missing
comment on exactly. I
Yeah.
wish,
or problematic?
apparently we miss Paul. He never comes around anymore.
Right.
Well, I heard
That's
there
the
were a bunch
plans.
of beautiful women going to be on the call, so how could I resist? I had to take this one.
All right, you don't have to lay it out.
No, not
A
appreciated.
good plan is all really that's needed.
No, looks very thorough. I'm okay.
Thanks. Marge.
What made you decide on a gallery system as opposed to some other type of a system for that location?
It just worked with respect to the soils testing and the topography from a minimum leaching spread system perspective.
Mhm.
Anything else, Paul?
Not from me.
Okay. Ken? You okay? Okay. Okay, well then, hearing no other questions or concerns, I guess we can take a motion on an emergency application and take action tonight. So we need a motion.
Is this a motion to approve?
Yes.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve application 1342-24.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Ken. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Very good. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the excellent plan too.
Thank you so
And the
much.
compliment. I think all the ladies on this call, the men maybe not so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a great
Right.
evening.
You too. Take care.
I'm looking forward to
Take
getting
care.
this fixed.
What did you say? What did you say?
Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting this fixed.
Oh,
I bet.
I bet you are. Thank
Good.
you. All right, so we're gonna move on now to application 1343-24, Rob Pulford. And that is Wes, and that's an installation of a septic system for a barn bath.
Correct.
Barn bath. Cool.
Well, they have an existing barn. I'm Wes Warwick, applicant for the owner. They have an existing barn, and they want to put a bathroom in simply to service from the pool, and that's really all that they're doing. It's a very small system. They can't really attach to the existing system because it's undersized right now. So we propose to put a new system in. Now the area is there's a stream. Ty, could you put up that site?
What is that stream called?
It doesn't flow all year. It's somewhat intermittent. Um,
I don't think there's a name to it. There are a lot of streams that come down off the mountain behind us.
Yeah,
I'm on the same slope and there's a lot of them. I don't think they're named.
right.
is this like a part of that series of waterfalls, Marge, too?
Yep. Well, I don't know if, yes, I don't know if there's waterfalls in this particular thing, but
Right.
there's a lot of runoff on top of the mountain.
Mhm.
So there's a berm in between the stream and the property. So the system is located in an area proposed to be down gradient from the stream.
Okay,
So there's really water can't flow back to the stream at all.
so just looking at the one map that I have. Are there, oh, there they are. I couldn't, the contours, I was just looking for those. Got it. Okay,
So the system is around 100 feet from the stream. Torrington Area Health did see it. I don't think we have a permit as of yet, but we're in the process of obtaining that.
again, this seems fairly straightforward unless there's something I'm missing. What would you say, Marge?
I don't know enough about engineering or anything, but the topography looks okay. Yeah, I don't see an issue.
There's no other wetlands except the stream, Wes?
Correct. Yes.
You're not showing any.
Right.
And Ty, have you been out to the site at all?
No, I haven't been at the site, but I did look over the plan and over the file and, the water course kind of wraps around a little bit, but it is up gradient of the work. We set the limit of disturbance on another, I have it in this file, but the limit of disturbance will be at the 50-foot line. So there won't be any work, beyond that area. Stockpile over here.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like, erosion control was needed just because the stream is much higher than the work, so.
Yeah. And there's nothing downstream, off-site?
No, nothing that
No.
would be disturbed.
Okay, so typically we would make a decision on this at the next regular meeting,
Right.
since it's not an emergency.
Right.
And if we need any additional information in the meantime, if Ty takes a look at this and sees something, she'll give you a call, but otherwise it sounds like it's fairly straightforward unless Paul or Ken have a concern that we haven't heard yet.
No, I don't.
Okay. Ken?
Could he
Was that
shake
a
his
yes,
head-
you're
nod
okay?
his head or should?
Nod
Yeah.
your head, it's okay, or?
Yeah.
Ken,
Can
Ken, will
you-
you nod your head if it's okay?
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So it looks like the commission is not concerned about this and it's fairly straightforward application, Wes. Thank you. And
Perfect.
we'll take action at the next regular meeting. And if something comes up in the meantime, Ty will reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to table application 1343-24 to the next regular meeting.
Thank you. We need a second. Ken is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, very good.
Great. Good night.
Good night, Wes. Right. And that's going to take us on to application 1344-24. Karen Pittleman. Michael. Oh boy, Bazuski.
Well done.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
173 Cobble Road, and this is removal of invasives and replanting with natives. So again, Ty, we'll start with you. Any concerns, issues, is it, complete application? What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, if you remember, Michael was before us a few months back with just a portion of the property. tackling the invasives, and then they decided to come back and look at the entire property as a whole, which I kind of thought was a really good approach rather than doing it piecemeal. They want to give a full picture of what the ultimate goal is. But they're going to do it in stages. So not to, disturb the entire site. So I mean, a permit is for 5 years. And then, the proposal is to do this in stages, but yeah, no, there's nothing really lacking from the plan other than it's just a little bit untraditional because of the sequenced stage approach, but it's probably a really good approach.
What's untraditional about that?
The fact that it's gonna be section by section over several years. So as far as erosion control and that kind of stuff, I think as they tackle this, but I'll let Mike tell you what his proposal is, but
Okay.
it's not like you're gonna do erosion control on the entire site. You're gonna do it as you need it and kind of tackle one area, let it establish itself and then move on to the next.
So I'm wondering in that kind of thing over a period of years, if it doesn't make sense to, assuming the commission were to approve this, to include a notification as you move from one stage to the next. Yeah.
That would- okay.
Okay,
Absolutely,
Mike.
Ty. Thank you for that introduction. Chair Warner, on page 3 of our supporting documentation, we state perform ongoing oversight and project management and proactive stewardship. We state in there NEPG will provide the commission and/or land use administrator project status updates as required to remain communicative and ensure a strong working partnership. That's exactly our intent. We all know that our landscapes are changing, weather's changing, and what we need to do is be able to respond to these changes really tactfully. And also, as the first applicant this evening mentioned, rather than clear cutting an entire area of invasives out, be really prescriptive, be really tactful, make sure that we have the resources allocated and lined up before we create that level of disturbance and before we deploy our solutions. Just by way of the background, Jay Fain and Associates, as well as Gary Hawk, had performed survey work on site. So we have an updated survey that is codified within our application, as well as Jay Fain and Associates wetlands flagging as well. Those flag markers are still maintained to this day. I was up on site a couple weeks ago just to make sure the flags were still visible on site for the commission. More than happy to answer any questions, but our application really starts with a roadmap, if you will, for this restoration.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you just said? It just got.
Oh, sure. Our application before you this evening, really, it's a roadmap, and it tells a story of how we're going to be really intentful and conscientious about restoration on this site. The site is really unique too, in kind of taking a step back from our last section in January to look at how this site actually touches by way of water into the Cobble Brook Vista Preserve area as well. So we're looking at the site as a corridor that that's really important. In considering the majority of the site is in both wetlands and regulated area, we want to be able to scope out beyond 2024 on page, bear with me. On page 7, we note our priority area for 2024. So that's what that's the area we would start in. And that has by way of a drainage easement, direct inflow onto the property. Right now it's overrun by mugwort. We do have some straw wattles deployed on site right now. There is some jute matting, there's some silt fencing as well. So if you were to drive by the site, those controls are already in place. So looking beyond is resource allocation permits from the client. We're really looking to restore this in phases, as Ty mentioned, really with her purview in oversight.
So you wouldn't be removing invasives without having already let Ty know you're about to do that and without also having the plants for replanting. in
Yeah,
these-
so we're not gonna be, with regard to our process, it's gonna be the same with every scope. So we have consistency and we have really some best practices by way of identifying first what natives are present, tagging those, demarcating those, so those are not damaged or removed. Right up by the road, I hope the Public Works doesn't cut them down. There's actually some really nice pagoda dogwoods growing in, right kind of out of the stone wall that's on Cobblebrook now, but those are even providing erosion control. So we want to make sure we tag those, yeah, but remove the honeysuckle, etc. Uh, for how we're going to do that, look, this is a really challenging site. There's a lot of invasives, so we need kind of the commission's support for really prescriptive removal using machinery and equipment as needed in certain areas. Once we do everything we can by hand, there might be some larger areas where we might need equipment. We might need to chip those invasives and take them off site because we don't want to because so much of the area is actually in the wetlands. We don't want to leave chip piles or brush piles that could impact any water that's traversing over that site for Cobblebrook itself as well.
So it almost sounds like you need to bring a staged plan for each stage, a plan for each stage back to the commission once you're at the site doing the work. Is that right? Is that what you're
So
saying?
so we have on page 9, we have what we're hoping would be the sequence of 2024 pending your approval in June. And what I would I guess advocate for would be following this same process for every phase that we're going to deploy. So if we're looking at 2025, maybe come to you in later on this fall potentially. And again, as we look at other priority areas, we could certainly have a conversation and dialogue with Ty so that way we could provide the commission what you need.
It's just that use of machinery that kind of scares me.
Yeah. And again, I think it depends on the area. When we talk about brush hogging, it's site access is really important, but we're not going to be bringing in large pieces of equipment. If you think of brush hog, we're not using what's on the side of the road and what the state's operating on Cedar Mountain Road or on some of our other main highways. It's a really agile piece of equipment. And again, the purpose there is efficiency and also cost to remove invasives in some of these areas by hand. It's just very cost prohibitive because it's all manual labor. A brush hog allows us to get that vegetation really low. So then we could quickly either solarize it or actually remove some of those stumps by hand so we can install invasive species. We don't intend to
So that you
work
can
in-
install native species, you mean?
I thought that's what I stated, yes.
You said invasives. I know Ken is trying to say something and I hope that we can hear him. I can't hear that at all. Can anybody hear that?
No,
Can't
can you
hear him.
type something in the chat?
Ken, do you know how to use the chat?
There should be like a plus on your keyboard that will turn your volume up. Right?
Is that F7?
Ken, do you see an F7 on your keyboard?
Up at the top?
Top center.
Yeah, he sees it. What does he do with it?
Just keep hitting F7.
Oh,
So it's above your numeric, your the number row, right above that, there should be a key that says F7. And if you keep hitting that, it should increase the volume.
Because we could hear him in the beginning. Now there's nothing.
Because I know we tested it before we handed them all out and they worked fine.
Another option is just to go on your cell phone and
Yeah.
come in
Yeah.
that way, and you can be heard that way.
Yeah, Ken, why don't you go ahead and do that? Use your cell phone and call in. Because we don't want to miss you.
So Mike, if you go in
Okay,
and brush
thanks,
hog
Ken.
to take down the invasives.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that opening sentence? I heard.
When
I
you
think you were
go in
cut
and
off.
brush hog,
Sure.
after everything is cut down fairly low, that's when you put the tarp over it to smother.
Yeah, and that's common. I mean, a 6 mil silage tarp, it's thick enough where once it's secured via sandbags, it's not going to be blowing around. And you, what it would be is, again, we're solarizing that site. We could remove the top growth of invasive species, but we don't know what's in that seed bank and what's going to propagate now that there's even more sunlight piercing through
Mhm.
that area. So solarization, again, it could take, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, depending on what's emerging at that time of year. So the silage tarp that we would deploy, and again, we're trying to get some scale. We're not just doing a little 10 by 10 area. We're looking to do some larger areas, so that way we can restore larger areas as well. But that's the idea. And that way it allows us to also monitor. We can peel back that silage tarp month 2, then month 3, month 4, see where we're at, see what potentially could still be emerging. It allows us to also get, if there's some very um, dense mass. I know mugwort's going to be a battle in that drainage easement area. It's there today poking through. So that's kind of a very rhizonerous mat that yeah, we're going to have to either remove that by hand or again, the hope is so get permission and your approval in June so we could begin solarizing and capitalize on some summer sun.
Mhm.
Yep.
There's also a very not on the subject property, but next door on Aquarian property, there's a very, very large colony of Japanese knotweed. Conversation for a different day, but we just really hope that that doesn't make its way upstream. It would be detrimental to this
Yep.
portion of Cobble Brook. So we're monitoring that and at a minimum hope to have a conversation with Aquarian about making sure it doesn't come up upland.
Ta- Is Ken having a problem dialing the actual number?
He must be, because it's not coming. It's not
Can you
coming.
can you call him on his cell phone and just turn him on speaker on your cell phone? Or I can do that. Well, I don't know if I have a cell phone actually.
I hear something.
Oh, here we go.
Joined the meeting.
Oh, we gotcha. Ken, we gotcha.
Now I can't, its mouth's moving again. I can't hear him. We had him for a minute.
Well, he's on mute. His phone. Ken, can you unmute your audio?
On the phone?
Well, no, he's muted his audio on Zoom. Otherwise, it wouldn't be showing up as muted. There, oops, you hung up. All right, try calling him, Ty. If you have a cell phone number. I'm sorry.
I do.
Okay. Ken, we're gonna call you and Ty is calling. Ty is Ken, Ty is gonna call you.
Number.
You don't have the number? Can't hear you at all.
Four, 4305.
4305 is what he's saying. We just heard him.
I know, the number I have for him is saying that
Please hang
there's-
up and dial star 611.
4305.
927?
All right, hang on a second.
860.
860
532.
532
4305.
4305. Thank you for your patience, Mike.
No worries.
Hello.
Yay!
There you
Hi.
go.
Hey, I hear you fine, but there's about a
Okay, so now we can hear
second
you.
delay on it, so
Say-
we'll have to patient and pause after each transmission.
Okay, you wanted to say something about this. You had a question about this application, I think.
My question was going to be, the ultimate objective of this work is to beautify the area.
No, I would actually say that's tertiary, secondary if not tertiary. The main goal of this is to remove invasive species that are currently on the subject site. That and the majority of the subject site is actually in wetlands or in the regulated areas. So we're really looking at a holistic approach to the restoration of this property to not only improve issues like stormwater runoff and erosion, but we're hoping to create more habitat in this area. So along Cobblebrook itself, Commissioner, there's been a lot of ashes that have declined with the emerald ash borer, with storms, etc. Over time, we're hoping to increase habitat. We hope it's beautiful. We think native habitat's beautiful. We're not going to be planting any non-native specimens on this site. So to answer your question, beautification is kind of a secondary goal, but a consideration.
To remove invasive species, but at the same time beautify the area. Is that not correct?
I would say so. I mean, if we could remove conventional turf grass and lawn and add beautiful native plants and plantings, then yes, in my opinion.
Well, your objectives are ultimately all good, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're not interested in beautifying a wetland. We're interested in restoring its natural functions, and
that's our
what I understood this to
that's
be.
our goal. We're not looking for any type of conventional landscaping or component within this area or even within the regulated areas we'll be working in. We're looking at really creating core habitat restoration, doing it through a very sustainable, scalable approach.
And with wetland plants, wetland native plants.
Absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about native plants too, looking at restoration grade as well, hundreds of native plants that will be restored. It's going to be a considerable amount of resources deployed to this. So we appreciate the consideration for the phased-in approach.
Did you include in here in this packet a list of all of the plants that you're contemplating using?
Yeah, on page, bear with me, please.
Mhm.
So on page 12, we have additional native options. pending sourcing availability for 2024. There are some additional native plants specifically to our priority area for 2024 on page 11, and those range from eastern red cedar, Ilex opaca, which is American holly, to witch hazels, to little blue stem. We're really covering every area and every layer of the landscape. We're not just going to be planting a few trees and walking away. We're looking to feather in that landscape down from existing eastern cottonwood on site to an understory layer. So that way each layer is acting as the ability to slow stormwater, soak it up, and provide critical habitat for wildlife.
Okay, so we'll take a close look at that. If we have any questions, we'll circle back to you on those. Any other questions while we have Mike here? Mike, we're gonna defer this to our next regular meeting, and in the meantime, I know I'll be absorbing all the information that you provided. There was a lot here. I skimmed it. I did not read every word, so I will take a close look at it. And if we have additional questions, Ty will reach out to you, because we'll reach out to Ty with those questions. And are there any other questions for Mike from Ken or Paul or Marge while we have Mike here? Or
Nope.
Ty, while we have Mike here?
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm looking at the drone footage that you have here, and you can see the lawn mowed around the house, and then the rest of the area looks like it's being kept more as meadow. And is
Yeah,
that
that's correct. It's currently for the last I don't know 30 years. My understanding is that it's been hayed every single year, and that hay is actually provided to I think a local um, uh, farmer for some horses. So it is still hay in those areas.
okay?
Our goal would be to reduce a lot of that kind of orchard grass and kind of non-native flora and restore that back to some really high quality native meadow. The trick is if Cobblebrook is running like it was this time last year and last summer, it could be very, very wet in certain areas. So we really appreciate the consideration for an adaptable strategy on this site.
Okay, the only thing I would reiterate is that for each phase, as you adapt, we would ask you to come back in. At
It
least
would be more,
yeah.
absolutely. And would be more than happy to do that when we come back. I'd be more than happy to also break down the wetland square footage, even more micro for you folks as well.
For each staged area?
For each phase, yeah, when the time comes. Just for your edification, our application as amended has the total area. Will we get to it in 5 years? I don't know, but that was inclusive of those total areas. So phase 1, phase 2, I'd be more than happy to break those down for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions, Paul?
No.
No? Ken? No? Marge? No? Ty? Okay. All right, then why don't we take a motion to defer this application to the next regular meeting, and we'll look forward to any additional information on the staged areas and acreage and so forth, if you have anything else to share with us at that meeting, Mike, and we will continue the conversation then.
Sure. Thank you for your time this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you for yours. We just
Okay, I'll
need a
make a
motion.
motion to table application 1344-24 to the next regular meeting.
Thanks. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Marge. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Thanks a lot. Wow.
Thank you.
Big job. Huh. Have a good night. We'll see you next month.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye. Okay. Application 134524, Town of Kent, Maple Street Extension Streetscape.
Hmm,
Wow.
Yeah,
Is there, Rick, are you here to talk about this one?
he is.
A little bit maybe, but Mark is here from
Mark is here? Okay, Mark.
engineer for the project.
Okay, I had a
Yeah.
couple questions, just on the surface, because again, there's a lot of material here to go through. And I was unable to devote time to it this weekend or today, the kind of time needed, but it says 75 on the maps. It said 75% completed. And I didn't know what that meant. And then I also had a question about the 1980 flood maps, the FEMA maps.
Okay, yeah,
Oh.
so I guess to answer your first question, we're going through the design process with the Connecticut DOT, so there's different design stages that
I
they
see.
require you to submit, so we just submitted 75%.
So does that mean that your design could change?
Potentially in these areas, it will not. It would be minor changes, mostly due to the project manual. It'd be more conceptual or contractual stuff.
Okay, but
Yes.
any impact to the wetland would require that you come back to us. You know that, right?
Yes, of course. Yep.
And then that 1980 FEMA map, I just had a question about that because I know that the floodplain maps have pretty much been thrown out the window based on the increase in precipitation.
Mhm.
And I was a little uncomfortable with the reliance on those maps and wondered if there was other information or material in your application that updated the flooding trends of the last 20 years.
No, we don't have anything in the application. We didn't, for this type of project, we didn't feel it was necessary, given our field observations and whatnot, but it's certainly something we could consider.
You know, based on what the wetland impacts are, I'm not sure it's necessary, but it just was kind of like, wow, 1980, that I
I
know that
know.
most people are not even using them. Okay, so those are my two clarification questions.
Okay.
It would be terrific. Ty, I don't know if you have anything that you want to kind of say to set the stage on this. It would be great if you could just walk us through the impacts to the wetlands.
Mhm.
Just there's not a lot, but the ones that you have and what your plans are to eliminate impacts or mitigate impacts just to the wetland areas.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Ty could get into it. I don't know if you have anything to add beforehand.
No, the plans were delivered to the office, but nobody really came in and did an overview. So this is my first time with the commission of seeing what the proposals are, other than me and Rick going through them ourselves. So go ahead. Tell us.
All right, so I've shared my screen. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll just give a brief introduction. So my name's Mark Mancini from SLR Consulting. We're working with the town of Kent on phase 2 of the streetscape project in
Can I
Kent
interrupt?
Village Center. Yep.
I just want to tell you that I'm turning my video off, but I'm here. I keep getting an unstable internet connection warning. So that's why I'm turning my video off. That's all. Okay.
No problem. So like I said, this is phase 2. We did phase 1. It was completed in Kent Village Center with new sidewalks on Main Street and Bridge Street under phase 1. Now this phase 2 of the project is largely a concrete sidewalk project along South Main Street from the Monument to South Commons Road, along Maple Street Extension, and Lane Street. So we've been retained to prepare the design plans and assist in permitting on this project as needed. The wetlands and water courses were delineated by a registered soil scientist at SLR within the vicinity of the project area in November of 2022. And given those delineations, there is some work that falls within the town's upland review area, so that's why we're here today. So I'll give you a brief rundown of where these impacts are. We have 2 general areas. The first area I'll start with is up on Maple Street Extension, just past or just east of the railroad tracks, if you're familiar with those. On my plan here, the railroad tracks are on the left-hand side here. If you can see my cursor, railroad tracks running here. If we go a little further east on Maple Street Extension, I've shown the intermittent water course that was surveyed and delineated. And that's shown in this blue color here. The intermittent water course is on the top side of the page, and then it's conveyed to the, we'll call it the south side of Maple Street Extension through a 36-inch CMP. And the limit of upland review area would be 200 feet from the water course, is delineated on this plan by this bold dash line. If you follow my cursor on this side, and then if I jump to the other page, a portion of it falls on this page too, which brings us closer to the intersection with Maple Street 341, just on the right-hand side of this plan, on the other side of the railroad tracks. So I'll jump back to this other plan because it shows the majority of the improvements, but basically what we're looking here is under existing conditions, there's essentially just Maple Street Extension here. There's no existing sidewalks or curbing. So what we're doing here is we're adding a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk off the east edge of the road, or the top side of the road here, along with some granite curbing as well. And given the grade drop off here, particularly right after the railroad tracks, up into, I guess, just past the field here before we get to the first residential property at 9 Maple Street Extension, at the back edge of the sidewalk, we've proposed a concrete wall, which will be cast in place to support that sidewalk, given the grade drop off there at the side of the road. And with that, the existing, yes,
Impact to a wetland with regard to that?
just the intermittent water course.
Okay.
Yep. So with that, we would need to extend this 36 CMP approximately 4 feet. Could be a little less depending on the field conditions. Right now, we're going with the conservative 4 feet. So it takes us through the concrete wall, so it could continue to convey that water course from one side of the road to the other. Some additional improvements within this upland review area includes, we're replacing existing driveways within the area, but those are there today, just a replacement. We have one new catch basin going in along the curb line at approximately station 30375 right here. And we're replacing the culverts beneath all the driveways with new RCP reinforced concrete pipe, which you see here below all the driveways. So in a nutshell, that's our proposed conditions. We do have our silt fence shown at the top end or top side of the sidewalk here. If you can follow my cursor, just to limit the sediment that goes into the field here. And we also have sandbags around the actual CMP itself for construction there, so we don't get any additional sediment within the water course, to the best of our ability. And in order to do this work, we're calling for a pump to convey the water from one side of the road to the other while this work is being completed. We've added that to the plan, but as far as constructing these improvements, and particularly constructing this extension of the 36-inch pipe, we hope to do that in low flow conditions, which we've observed out there. The water course is fairly dry. So the hope is to do this work during that time period, thus no need for the pump. but we've added it in there to show that we're thinking about it in case it's needed. It's on the plan. So that in a nutshell is a majority here of the proposed impacts within the upland review area on this project. If you'd like, we could take questions on this before jumping to South Main Street, which is much easier.
Questions right now? I think we're gonna have to take a little time to absorb it, but any questions on this right now?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, why don't we go ahead and jump, Mark?
Okay, so the second area here, this is one of two areas, so this is the second one, is along South Main Street towards South Commons Road. So on the top side of this page, I'll orient you here. So north is actually facing to the bottom left. South Main Street running from left to right here. If you go right on the page, you go to New Milford, and if you go left, you go towards the center of town. Kent Gardens here at the bottom of the page, South Commons Road, right here where my cursor is. This is at the tail end of the project limits. And then at the top side of the screen, you'll see highlighted in blue is the delineated wetlands that we've picked up on. And then from there, we've offset the upland review area 100 feet from the wetlands, and that's delineated by this bold dashed line that you see here running through the center of the page. So the work within this area is essentially just a replacement of what's there today. Under existing conditions, there's a bituminous or asphalt sidewalk. You could see that. It's hard to tell where the limits are because we're practically just replacing it in kind with concrete sidewalk. But this hatch here shows our new concrete sidewalk, and in gray there you could see the surveyed bituminous or asphalt sidewalk that we're simply just replacing in this area. So it's an easy rip up and put back down. The only new material or permanent improvements will be the installation of granite curbing. There's no curbing out there today. So there'll be granite curbing installed along the edge of the road. And we have some grading at the front end and back end of the sidewalk as usual, just to flare it in. And at the grading limits, you can kind of see this is our grass hatch here, all those pluses or all those crosses. That shows where we'll be planting. Seed for grass, just beyond that, these rectangular boxes and lines in between indicate our silt fence, so that we don't get any sediment into our wetlands. So that extends throughout the length of the sidewalk here before it ties into sidewalk along South Commons Road. Questions? Rick, do you have anything to add? I want to give you the opportunity as well. I know you've been involved from the get-go on this, so feel free to chime in.
Not as far as this application, though.
Okay, thank you.
You did have the floodplain marked down here, right? Because Lynn was asking about that, but
Yes, the 500-year floodplain, you could track here, kind of goes in and out, but we do have a call out for it as well.
Yeah.
And we have taken this to the Connecticut DOT interagency meeting last month to meet with representatives from the different agencies and permitting agencies to get their input. They didn't have anything for us. They thought this was a fairly straightforward application. We'll be submitting an Army Corps of Engineers self-verification form through that process. So we've gone through all the other environmental permitting as well, being that it's a federally funded project.
Yeah. Okay. Questions, Ty or Paul or Ken? Okay, I think we need to absorb this a little bit. It does seem fairly straightforward, but it's a lot of material to go through.
Especially the report, yes.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, are
the,
you, are
the
you
only
doing
thing-
granite curbing across the street there as well?
I'm sorry, Paul.
Are you doing granite curbing across the street? Across seven?
Wherever you see the dark line work is where
Yep.
the proposed is directly across the frontage of Kent Gardens here. There is no proposed curbing.
Right.
It starts at their, I guess, northernmost driveway here.
Ty, were you gonna say something?
the only thing I was gonna say is, maybe just a double check could be done with regard to the calculations of the activities within the wetlands and within the upland area. I think there might be an extra 0. When Rick and I were looking at it together, we were adding up what the
Mhm.
plan had said versus what was on the application, and I think it might be just a typo, but maybe
Okay.
if you could just double check that, because it wasn't adding up for us.
Okay. Just the activities within the upland review area.
Yeah, so on your application, you have 0.0003 of the acreage of wetlands and watercourse disturbed. And we thought it might be an extra 0 in there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll clarify that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. If we don't have any other questions for Mark tonight, I say we table this till the next regular meeting and take a hard look at this and be prepared if we have any questions to discuss them more fully at the next meeting. And Ty too. Ty and Rick. Okay, so we need a motion then to table.
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Thank you, Mark, for walking through that with us.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You too, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, so we need now to move on to 134624 Stonewall Lane driveway and brook crossing. And is that Mr. Cole? Oh,
Yes, hi.
Ross, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
being here and appreciate everybody's time. I know you're all
Yeah.
volunteers, so I know what it's like.
Yeah. Let's see. I am looking for your application, which I did have.
It might not have made it to this was one of the later submissions.
I got
Not
it.
sure.
I
It
did-
did
I even
make it
looked-
into the packet.
Yeah, I even looked at it. Okay, so Ty, you want to just give us a sense of what the application is? I know it's late and you might not have actually looked at it really carefully, but
Yeah, I worked with Mr. Cole a little bit on some of the things that were lacking. We didn't have an opportunity to actually update the things that we needed. So we spoke about the erosion control and stockpile areas, the limit of disturbance needs to be included as well. See what else? Any kind of grading or clearing. He explained that there wouldn't be much grading. And then, all the stuff that has to deal with the culvert construction as well, like the sequence and whatnot. So we did go over today, what the plan was lacking. And I think he was working today on trying to get some of that information for you for this meeting, but we don't have it for the file yet. So we'll have to update the file when it comes in.
all right. And Ross, do you want to just walk us through what you're proposing to do? What's going on?
Sure. Yep, I'd be happy to. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah.
Sure, that's the easiest way to do this. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Mhm.
Yep.
Great. Let me just move this out of the way Sorry, it's got all these other things blocking me and like pictures of you and all that. So I apologize. Just trying to move that to the side. So I'll start with this just to orient you on where the site is. So this, I'm sure you're familiar with this map. And so the site is this area right here that is in the dashed area. And you can see the brook that is in question that we want to cross over really starts right up in this area.
In the
and
wetland?
that's indicated as wetlands, and then it kind of continues down there and goes out towards the river. I'm just showing you that to kind of create some orientation for it. So now if I go to the plans that were submitted, you can see this is the site location over here. So there were 3 drawings that were submitted. I'm an architect, and so the site plan is an updated drawing that I had done because I wasn't satisfied with the drawing that the civil engineer had done. And so I wanted to try and clean that up. And so what you're seeing was done by me with my stamp on it versus the drawing of the work at the brook that the civil engineer has done. And then I also included a 3rd drawing, which showed what was originally proposed and filed, as I understand it, when the development was built. So I'll just start with that, which is, this is the area where the lot is. It's lot 37. And you can see at the time, and this goes back to, I don't want to bounce this around too much, but you can see this goes back to the 1980s when they were doing this work. And the road is pretty much where it was planned to be. So that exists today. What is different is that if I zoom in here, you'll see that they showed a driveway coming straight down off of the cul-de-sac here, going down to where we want to cross over at the brook. And you can see that wetlands area with the brook delineated in here going across. And you can see there's also a second one over here. They're showing this one with a couple of 18-inch culverts in here. The issue with coming straight down is that just doing the math to get from where this cul-de-sac is to even just above where this brook is, say 8 or 10 feet above it, you're going to average about a 14% grade from here to here. And, you know, the driveway maximum allowable by state code, as I understand it, is 12%. So the math doesn't work. And the other thing is that there is a pretty steep slope over here, which is about a 20% grade change, which, as I saw it, would require a lot of disruption in this area to even start to make this feasible. So I wanted to start with that to explain to you why we're proposing to take a different approach on this project. So I'm just going to zoom out and go back to that first drawing, because you'll see that if I zoom in now to where the cul-de-sac exists over here, what we're proposing to do is actually enter the property right here and work with the grade to be able to come down and go across here. And the reason why it's got this shape to it is largely in part to be responsive to the terrain that we're dealing with, so that we're disrupting as little as possible. Ty's been really helpful through this whole process and pointed out the things that are missing from the application. And I'm certainly not expecting an up or down sort of vote at tonight's meeting. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that. What I was hoping to get was any questions, concerns that you have, so that we can make sure that we're doing this right and addressing it thoroughly, because that's really my primary interest here. Is I want to, just as an architect, I want to just make sure we're doing it correctly.
So the wetland impacts are really right where it all squeezes together?
It's right where it all squeezes together. We did have a soil scientist, James McManus, who went out and flagged everything. So you can see his flags are all here, and I'm happy to zoom in on this. I just was trying to kind of keep it bigger picture now so that we could drill into the details in a minute. And it makes sense that this is the spot where they're proposing for the crossing and always have, because you can see the wetlands really flare out in this area over here, both in these directions and then over here. There's also a conservation easement, which you can see with this whole hatched area that is right up to this point here, and it goes back this way. And then there's a gap here, and then an additional conservation easement all the way over this way, right really until it gets to the area that is effectively the neighbor's property. The property line goes over here, but you can see the neighbor's driveway actually kind of goes across the property like this.
So you're actually within the regulated area as you get to this, I can't read it, there's a yellow circle. You enter the
Yeah.
regulated area there, and then where does the regulated area go from there? I don't see it on this map.
Yep. So what I'll do is I'll highlight the regulated area for you. It's
Yeah.
basically this over here.
Oh, I see, thank you.
And then it
Mhm.
also picks up over here. So this is also
Okay.
regulated area over here, as it was flagged by the soil scientist and then documented by Robert Hawk's office.
Okay.
So
So
basically, everything in between these yellow lines, these highlight that I drew, is all regulated area as we see it.
Great, okay. So your driveway enters the regulated area and then crosses the brook. And what are you crossing the brook via? Can you blow that up a little bit? And what are you planning
Oh,
to do
sure.
there?
Yep. So over here is where we are planning to basically duplicate what was done downstream. I'll just zoom out again for 1 second to show you something. I mentioned the neighbor's driveway, for whatever reason, because this predates us, doesn't even cross where the neighbor's property is. It actually crosses on our property. But there was a 36-inch culvert with a small retaining wall built here, and I thought you might be interested in that. So what I did was actually took pictures of that to just show you what's there. So this is what's existing.
What kind
This
of
is an
culvert?
old-
What kind of culvert is that? Did you get a shot of the culvert itself?
Yep. Yes, I think you're asking about this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then there's also a shot on the other side that shows it this side. And so what we're looking to do is basically duplicate what was built here further upstream. I can't tell you precisely when this was built, but from the records I've run across, it looks like it's at least been 10 or 15 years
Yeah.
that it's been in place,
Yeah.
possibly longer.
There's a big push now to avoid exactly this kind of stream crossing, and instead you use a bridge or something an open bottom culvert that mimics the stream bottom. Just so you know, that's kind of the trend. And that's my immediate reaction when I see that kind of culvert, is like, oh. But I understand what you're trying to do. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. And we did look into a bridge. The issue that I have is I also looked into what the vehicle weighs that would have to do the well drilling, and it's about 89,000 pounds. And so when I looked into this with a structural engineer about crossing the bridge and the amount of disruption that would have to happen to support a vehicle of that weight coming across here, that's where we were discouraged about doing a bridge. But I'm certainly happy to look into other methods of a culvert to be able to do this, because I think that from everything I've researched, this is achievable. One thing to mention, you may or may not recall, because I know you see a lot of applications. I had come before you as a pre-application February of last year. So we've been taking our time to try and figure out, okay, what really makes sense here in terms of how we approach this, where we site the house, and all those things. We intentionally went through the 4 seasons to just see how the property lives before we said, yes, this seems like the right way to do it. And that's why we're back in front of you now. So to your point about this area, one of the things that my wife and I are looking for in our conversation with you tonight is to see if there are things that you'd like us to look at more closely, look at perhaps as an alternative for this, because we recognize that we don't have a monopoly on good ideas. And you see a lot of projects, particularly in this area. So we thought we'd try and be a beneficiary of that by getting your thoughts on how we might be able to do this, either the way we're showing it or perhaps a better way.
Yeah. While Rick is here, I've got a question for Rick. You guys put in it was a temporary bridge on Dugan Road to access when you were trying to, I can't remember exactly what you're trying to do up there, repair the existing bridge. And was there new construction going on above that bridge? I guess my question is, are there bridges capable of handling the kind of construction equipment that Ross is talking about? And are they cost prohibitive for permanent installation? Are they really expensive? Oh, you're on mute.
I would assume that if you put a bridge there, it wouldn't be more than 8 or 10 feet wide?
No, that's actually
Oh, no.
part of the problem. Just to interject on your thought, what happens is this slopes down, as you'd expect, towards this. I would even call it just an intermittent brook because there's a good chunk of the year when it's not running at all. But it slopes down about 10 feet and then it slopes back up about 10 feet. So going across, we're more like 50 to 60 feet if we were to put a bridge in there, working with all the grades and everything that we've got to disrupt to make that happen.
No, I don't.
That's where the
Not-
rub is
I'm
for
not
us.
following the disruption part if you just lay a bridge across, but
And
okay,
if you were planning on putting a 3-foot culvert in there, I don't think you're gonna need a 50-foot bridge to,
yeah.
you just put a couple wing walls up and fill in behind them if you needed to, but
Okay, so that's one option. We'd like you to consider exploring an
But-
alternative to culvert.
I mean, you can just rent a bridge that could lay on over top of that one for the time that truck was there.
That's what you did. Okay.
If the span is narrow enough, all the axles aren't gonna be on the bridge at the same time, so.
But it sounds like what you're suggesting, just to mark up the plan, is basically to kind of build effectively a retaining wall like this over here and over here to then bridge across this way, if I were to say use a highlighter, so that we're
Right.
kind of just bridging across right there.
That would be
Um,
the normal way to do it, not go
Okay,
back
we could,
50 feet and, build a
yeah,
bridge.
this is where I
that long as-
sorry.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, this is where I defer to you because I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's a lot of disruption so close to the stream, but
You know, we can't actually tell you what to present to us. We can talk to you about the things that we look for, to whether it's an intermittent stream or not, it's still functioning. It's going to be holding flowing water. We're going to be getting more precipitation. We worry more now about the viability of that stream and the ability for any culvert to hold the water down the road. And we're dealing with a lot of culverts that have blown out and caused a lot of problems. So, and from just a natural standpoint, anything that can mimic the natural river as opposed to a channeled, contained, piped river is better for all of the animals that depend on that stream in the springtime, to get upstream to spawn and that kind of thing. So just overall, it makes better sense to look at alternatives other than your typical round culvert.
and that's I will definitely investigate that further. And appreciate the guidance on, that span issue that we were looking at to try and not be disruptive about it.
And let's go farther up.
While we're still on the bridge, I just
Oh, I'm
have,
sorry.
yeah,
sorry.
How big of a span is that brook? If it was gonna be an open span, what would be needed?
You're talking about this dimension?
Yes,
Well, we're anticipating
not the
the
width of the
driveway.
driveway, the crossing.
So wait, going from the left side of the brook to the right side of the brook?
Yes,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So that dimension is gonna be, I'm just trying to think of where to measure it from, meaning literally from edge of brook to edge of brook?
yeah,
That's about 4 or 5 feet. It's not very wide, at 4 or 5 feet at the most.
I'm just trying to remember. I think I've seen it. I don't know any companies that do it, but I think there's companies that do precast concrete structures for that type of a crossing. It would be open bottom, not a culvert, and it's set right in place. So it doesn't disturb the stream bed itself.
Okay, and I will look into that, and see what I could find out. I've been pushing for trying to get as much knowledge as I can to figure out what the smartest way is to approach this.
Is that called an open bottom culvert, Paul, or is that actually a bridge?
Probably.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if you, sorry, actually, you had wanted to see a little further up.
I think we
the
need
plan.
to,
Do you want me
we
go
need
there?
to move a little more quickly because we have a lot other things on the agenda. And I appreciate very much that you're taking the time to walk us through this, but I just wanted to see if we could get a sense of the overall impact here.
Sure. So this is the driveway continuing up over here. You can see we're running diagonally across the grade over here to try and minimize any impact there. We will show final grading here, but again, the idea is really to work with these grades that you're seeing and not have a dramatic impact on it. So really, it's just to be able to adjust these so that we can get the crown that we need in the driveway and get the very small swales that we have to either side. The other thing we're doing is, and you can see an example of it right here, is we're trying to work around the existing trees. We did have Robert Huck's office identify where any trees were of any substance, meaning anything that I think is greater than 6 inches in diameter or so. So you can see those all labeled here. And there's really just, if I continue this up, there's really only a few trees that we're proposing to take out. There's one tree here that is it has 3 bases to it. There's another one that's a twin over here, and then there's one tree over here, because we're looking at putting the house in this area. And the reason why I say that way is because what we want to do is this in a 2-step process, very intelligent, very deliberately, which is that we need to be able to get across the stream so that we can do what the health department needs us to do to see what type of septic system we can actually install, which will then drive what we actually do with the house. You know, meaning if we can only get a 3-bedroom house in there, then we'll design for a 3-bedroom house. If it's 2-bedroom or if it's 4-bedroom, whatever it is, you know, we'll be able to then
So
base
have
it
you
on
found
what-
a location for a septic?
Yes, one of the reasons why we settled on going across the stream is because after investigating several areas of the site, you can see there are 3 test pits that are identified here. I don't know who dug them, but by being able to just simply walk across the stream, we can see that they look very promising, probably the most promising, which also explains why on that first drawing I showed you from the 1980s, they also show test pits in this area. So it seems like that's what everybody agreed on was probably the most likely area. And after we kicked the tires lots of different ways, we've basically come back to the same impression that this is probably the most likely area.
Can you back
for
out
a
so we
septic.
can take a look
Sure.
at the whole property?
Yep, absolutely. Is that good?
Okay, so you've got wetland to the above where your house site is. How close are you to the wetland boundary at the closest point of that house?
Over here, assuming the house stays in this exact position, because right now this is just really a gesture more than anything, but this is about 50 feet from here
Pretty
to where the
close.
wetlands are.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd have to show us that there wasn't a better alternative that was farther away from the wetland. And I can't tell if there is. Based on the slope, maybe not. What is that? Crosshatch little,
Over here? So basically, this would be where the
Fine.
house would sit over here with the garage and all that.
regulated
And
area.
then this is basically a little home studio that we're proposing to build. And so the idea is once you get here with the driveway circles around, because this is all basically level right here. So building a little studio right here and then building a house right over in this area. And you know, whether the house is here or whether it's here, haven't
Why
really
wouldn't you
figured that out yet. And we're not asking for approval on that yet. We tried to make it clear.
Understood. Why? But that kind of tells where your driveway would go. Why? Maybe not so much. Why wouldn't you put the house on the level area?
Back up over here.
Hmm.
Part of
Not
it
big
is
enough?
well, it's not so much that it's not big enough. It's that when we look at the different aspects of the property, there is some really wonderful terrain right along here that just seems like it's really calls out to us as a great location for the house, for the views back this way towards the brook, for being able to hear the brook when it is running in the spring and the fall, and then also the views back over this way towards the property. And then lastly is the neighbor has a house that kind of is right over here. So the way the terrain of the property works is that this is actually a nice spot where we don't feel like we're kind of right up on our neighbor. Whereas when we get up over here, the visibility towards the house actually increases because of the way the property slopes around like this. So we tried to kind of intentionally nestle it down this way a little bit just for those reasons.
Back out again.
Sure.
What you're asking us to consider, not at tonight's meeting, but at the next meeting, is the location of the driveway and the crossing of the brook. Is that right?
Correct, because we haven't even finalized the house design yet, so we want to get to that first step and then come back to you again at some point in the future. It might be 6 months from now or longer. We just don't know how long it'll take to go through all the health department stuff. And then
Yep.
once we have that solid, come back to you with a plan on the house itself.
Yeah, and again, there's no place this side of the brook where you don't have to cross the brook where you could put a house?
Not really, because we actually were looking at it up in this area, but it's very shallow ledge over here. So everybody was very dubious about the ability to actually get a reasonable septic system in this whole area. And so I think that's part of why, going back to that first plan I showed you from the 1980s, they also showed the house kind of over in this area and the septic over here.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on this plan for tonight for Ross?
No.
Okay. All right. So we will have, and Ty, how about you?
No, I think I just had the same ones you did, was just, what were the alternatives? Because I'd hate to see a crossing happen and then find out you can't develop up there anyways, and find out that you're gonna end up down at the bottom. So Ross says that, apparently they've studied it and can't get a septic in at the bottom, so that makes sense if that's what's happened there.
Okay. So we'll have to come back and discuss this at our next regular meeting. And by then you'll have the additional information. And if you can verify truly that there is no other place on the property for a septic, that'd be helpful to have on the record. Okay. And I can't think of anything else. Can you, Ty?
No,
Okay.
I think I've gone over it with him.
Okay.
And we'll also look at what better methods there are rather than just a 36-inch culvert.
Yeah. And whether or not that culvert would even hold the water that comes down there. It's pretty steep. It may be intermittent, but it may be pretty wild when it's running. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thanks very
much.
much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. And thanks for
Likewise.
waiting. All right.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Good night.
Good day.
All right. All right, so we need a motion to table this application 1346-24.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second. Sorry, I've got a really bad leg cramp.
Oh, I hate that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. So next up, we've got application 1347-24, and this is Rick. And this is generator pad and conduits. All right.
It's also a removal of underground oil tank.
Removal of what?
An underground oil tank.
Oh,
There's two things on there, the generator pad and then the oil tank being removed.
okay. So,
No screen sharing, just short and simple.
okay. Ty, what do you think about this application?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's familiar with this property. It's pretty flat. The issue in question is that pond that's over by the post office, and the distance, is about 180 feet from, this activity from that pond itself. So there's really no concerns based on knowing the property and where the activities are going to happen as far as I can see.
There's
Plus,
no,
I'm there every day.
no
So is
wetlands.
Rick. No, I mean, I don't see any delineated wetlands elsewhere. It's that pond that is the water body that we're trying to avoid the 200 feet from.
Yeah. And the underground fuel storage tank, Rick?
Marked on there in the,
Pink.
yeah, on the left side of the sidewalk going in towards the building.
Why can't I? Oh, there it is.
We've moved the tanks inside, so that's,
So that tank there's nothing in it right now?
there's still a little bit in it because it hasn't been cleaned for removal, but
So what happens if you take the tank out and discover that you've got a leaking tank?
Well, hopefully, since it was a fiberglass tank that never did leak, but if it does, then we'll put in presumably just a venting system. Which we
You'll
found
scoop out
other
the
buildings that-
contaminated soil?
If we put the
Yes.
venting system in, you usually don't have to remove the soil, so,
You really?
yep. DEP lets you just put a stone in with perforated pipe and vent it to the surface.
You know, we had to remove we had an underground, 1,000-gallon underground fuel storage tank that did leak. And we did have to remove all the soil.
Uh,
So
When we did the one at the community house, they found traces in the ground there, but they
Not
let
very
us
much.
go with just doing the venting there, so
maybe it's driven by the amount.
it could be, or
Yeah.
the soil type. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well, plus the fact that our well was within reaching distance, given enough time. Okay. Any questions here?
No, it looks pretty straightforward.
I won't be doing the tank removal. That'll be somebody like Concord or somebody like that. That's
That does it?
licensed for it. Not,
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, Marge, you okay? Sure,
Yeah,
okay? Okay. So is this an emergency or are we acting on this at the next regular meeting, Ty?
I think we can wait until the next, as far as I understand, Rick is not starting any of this stuff right away.
Okay,
Mm.
so, very good. So you had to sit through all of that to hear a motion to table this application to the next regular meeting.
well, kind of figured that was gonna happen, so.
So somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thanks, Ken. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention. Okay, very good. All right, so we'll see you next month. Well,
Okay,
yeah.
maybe
right.
when I retire, I'll come join you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
That'd be great. All right, thanks a lot.
bye.
Bye. Okay, any written or verbal communications to the commission, Ty?
No.
All right. So now we're gonna have to, I guess, go into executive session.
Yep, so what you have to do is just make a motion to enter into
And then you
executive
stop
session at
recording.
8:51, and I'll pause the recording.
So we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Got it. All right. So we need a motion to come out of executive session
So moved.
and a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're out of executive session at 9:02, and for the record, just state that the commission has decided to simply follow the advice of its legal counsel in this matter. Does that cover it?
That's perfect.
All right, any other issues, concerns? I see Ken ready to, I'm yawning too. I can't figure out why my internet is so unstable tonight, but I apologize for going in and out on video. And
Okay.
I hope you're okay, Marge.
Oh, yeah, I've just been sitting for too long. I'm
For
just
too long.
cramping up,
Okay.
but so is everybody else. I'm not complaining.
Well, I'm gonna let you go run around the house.
Good. I will
I
do
need a
that.
motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Marge and Ken. All right, all in favor? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any opposed or abstention? All right. Everybody have a good night, and thanks, Ty, for all your good work.
Yes, thank you,
The-
thank you, Ty.
This was a big one.
It was a long one. Have a good night.
All right.
Good night.
Have a good night.